of the Instructional Leadership Show, rotating your visits to see a wider range of practice in you. I'm your host, Justin Bader, and every week here on the Instructional Leadership Show, it is our mission to help you confidently get into classrooms every day, have feedback conversations that change teacher practice, and discover your best opportunities for school improvement. And I believe one of the best ways to discover those best opportunities for school improvement is to get into classrooms at a variety of different times on a frequent basis, much more frequent than we'll pull off just kind of by default if we say, okay, I'm going to try to get into classrooms a few times this week. Most of the time when we try to get into classrooms, we end up succeeding maybe a few times a week. And as you probably know, if you follow what we do at the Principal Center, it makes a big difference to get into classrooms 3 times a day, 15 times a week, or 500 times a year. As we talk about now we're talking 21 Days to High Performance Instructional Leadership. And every week here on the Instructional Leadership Show, we take a piece of that topic and go into to depth on it. And today we're going to focus on the question of how to best rotate our visits so we see the widest possible range of practice. We know, because of the patterns in the school day, perhaps the morning is more uninterrupted time. In the afternoon, maybe you have more disruptions to deal with, visitors and phone calls and discipline issues and so forth. So there tend to be easier times to visit classrooms. And because of that, we tend to see, for a given teacher, we tend to see the same subject, the same period, the same group of students, the same type of instruction over and over again. And today, we're going to zoom into that question of how to rotate those visits so we see a variety of different instructional situations, different subjects, at the secondary level, different groups of students within the same teacher's classroom. And every week on the show, we draw from our rubric, the High Performance Instructional Leadership Roadmap. And level 4 practice on our rubric includes not only getting into every classroom on a 2-week rotation, but rotating the time of those visits so that we see each teacher at different times of day. So that is our focus today. And if you're joining us live, please go ahead and leave a comment. Let me know that you're here and let me know what you think as we go along. I want to first acknowledge that we don't always have a goal of seeing a wide range of practice, right? Sometimes that's just not our purpose. Sometimes, as in the formal observation process, we want to see the best possible lesson that a teacher is capable of. And we let the teacher know ahead of time, hey, I want to come this week. What day is good? What time is good? What period do you want me to visit and observe? I'll stay the whole time. I'll observe your lesson. We can talk about your lesson plan in advance. We can talk about it afterward in case I missed anything or misinterpreted anything. And the goal there for that formal observation is to basically see the best case scenario when all the ducks are in a row, ideal circumstances, best instruction possible. But we know that that is only useful for certain purposes, right? Like I do want to know the best that my teachers are capable of. But if my goal is instead coaching, I might say instead, hey, I really would like to work with you on this practice. When are you going to be using that? When do you want to try that? And I can come and observe, and we can talk about that specific practice. Well, in that case, we're not looking for range, we're looking for focus. In other cases, we're looking for something that we can document as exemplary practice, maybe to hold up as an example for others, maybe to nominate a teacher for a Golden Apple Award or a Teacher of the Year Award. Again, we're not looking for there. And if you are working on dismissal, if you are documenting a teacher's subpar performance, of course, you want to be fair to the teacher. But again, the goal is to document the subpar performance, not necessarily to do representative sampling and capture the full range of everything, some of which is not going to be relevant to your purpose. So I want to ask you to think about this for a second in terms of range restriction. When we do the normal thing that administrators do and only observe at certain times of day and see the same subjects over and over again, what kind of distortions appear in our qualitative data if we're only visiting each teacher's classroom at a certain time of day? The same subject every time, the same period every time, the same group of students every time. It's always 9:35 a.m. or, whatever time it is you tend to visit that teacher. What distortions does that create in the impressions that you draw, in the conclusions that you draw, in the data that you collect, that qualitative, rich, descriptive data that you collect by taking notes in the classroom? If the range of your visits in terms of the time and the subject is compressed, if it's restricted, then the qualitative evidence that you have, the data that you collect, are going to be restricted as well. When it comes to your evaluation process, when it comes to the overall evaluations that you do of each teacher and assessing their practice, I want you to think about how those will be distorted if they're based only on observations of one subject, one period, at one time of day. And of course, sometimes, again, we're looking for the best possible instruction, the best possible performance from that teacher. If we know we have this one high stakes observation that we have to do, often we'll ask the teacher, hey, what class do you want me to come observe? Which class do you want to show me? Where do you want feedback? Which class, is really going to be focused on the key issues that you want me to observe here? And we know we're not seeing the worst, we're not seeing the average, we're seeing the best, and that just kind of is what it is. But I think that results in an inflation in our teacher evaluations. And, depending on how you feel about that, you might choose to do some rotation in your formal observations. But what we're here to talk about today is rotating those informal visits. So even if you choose not to evaluate teachers on the basis of, an unplanned, unscheduled observation of maybe not their best class, even if you're not going to use that for their formal observation and evaluation, you at least know. You are at least aware of what practice looks like in that subject for that teacher at that non-ideal time of day. Can we agree that that's important, right? To have that information, to have that impression, because parents are not going to say to you, well, I want to complain about the education my child is experiencing in this particular class, but only if that's the class that you're evaluating for the purposes of your annual appraisal process, right? They don't say that. They say, hey, my kid is not learning, or my kid is not having a good experience in this class. What are you going to do about it? And if we are in the position as instructional leaders of saying, well, I don't really know what you're talking about, I don't really know what's going on in that class, I guess I'll have to go find out, that's not a great situation to be in, right? We don't like surprises in this line of work. So we're here today, if you're just joining us, we're here today to talk about rotating those informal visits so that we see more of what's going on. We see the full range of what's going on in classrooms. And I think when it comes to understanding teacher performance, we have to realize that every teacher's performance is contextual to the specific class and group of students that they are teaching, right? And intuitively, we know this as former teachers, right? If you're an administrator, you've probably been in the classroom and you've probably felt like you really hit it out of the park every day with a certain subject, a certain period. Maybe you had one particular class that you just felt like, even if every other class struggled a bit, this class was going to get it. They were going to get the full benefit of the lesson that you planned for whatever reasons specific to that group of students, specific to that time of day. For me, often it was not my first period class. I never felt like my first period class was fully awake enough to get the full intended benefit of my lesson. I never felt like my class right after lunch was fresh enough. They're always kind of dragging after lunch. But kind of toward that late morning, I felt like there was a sweet spot where I was really hitting my stride. Often I had taught the lesson several times, I taught it 2 or 3 times by then for my 6th grade classes, and I really felt like I was on my A game for that class. But if you were to evaluate my performance overall based on just one of those classes, like you would come to a very different conclusion based on which class you observed, right? My 5th and 6th period classes were not the same. 6th was probably better than 4th or 5th, just because of the time of day and the groups of students. But performance is contextual, and that's something that we don't really like to acknowledge a ton because it's a complication. It makes things more difficult. It makes your job more difficult as an evaluator. So again, even if you want to base your evaluation on one particular period, you at least want to know what's going on in those other subjects and in those other periods, because frankly, it matters for student learning. In your school, especially at the secondary level, I am quite confident that you probably have teachers who are teaching outside of their certification area, or maybe they're certified in it, but they didn't major in it, or they don't love it. Maybe they are a little bit rusty in that subject. You have teachers teaching subjects that they barely prep for because they're putting all of their prep time into what they think of as their core subject. Maybe you have a chemistry teacher who teaches one section of 9th grade general science. or integrated science, or whatever you call it. And that class is not their passion. It got added to their schedule at the last minute. They weren't planning to teach it. They've never taught it before. They don't love it. Ninth graders, there are lots of reasons in their mind why that class is not equal in terms of priority when it comes to planning and preparation. And because there is that difference of investment on the teacher's part, it is highly likely that there are differences in the student experience and in the outcomes of that teaching. So students are being affected when we have teachers who are not putting in that full effort and not putting in the same effort that they're putting into their other classes. And again, even if you don't want to make that the basis of your evaluation, you at least need to know about it. Can we agree on that? So we do want to maximize range when it comes to classroom walkthroughs. And the good news is it is not difficult to do that. All we have to do is be intentional. If we just go out into the hallway and pick a class at random, it is going to take about the same amount of time as if we go visit classrooms on purpose with a plan, with some coordination, with an intention to see different subjects at different times of day. It's really not that much harder. It's not that much more time consuming. It just requires intentionality. And I want to make sure that you are using the number one tool that will make this easy for you, that will make it effortless to track which subjects, which periods you've seen in every teacher's classroom. And of course, that tool is our classroom visit note cards. So we developed these note cards in collaboration with participants in our Instructional Leadership Challenge. We've had more than 10,000 people in 50 countries around the world go through the Instructional Leadership Challenge, and we had different tools and different strategies that we were recommending over the years. We're now in our fourth complete update of the challenge, and along the way, participants said to us, I really find it helpful to write out my schedule for each teacher, write out each teacher's schedule on a note card and keep track of it that way to make sure that I'm not visiting the same subject over and over again. So now that's what we recommend. We give you a template for that. You can print that out at principalcenter.com/notecards. If you want us to send you some, we have them printed up at a little print shop up the road here. We will send you some at cost for $4. We'll send you as many as you need. So you can get those at principalcenter.com/notecards. Make them yourself. I don't care. We don't make any money on those, whatever you want to do. But do it and use them to keep track of your visits. And I've made a big push for this over the summer to help people get ready for the new school year. And here's an example from Tracy. She's got this teacher's schedule written out, and you can tell this is an elementary classroom because she's got ELA, social studies, math, PE, it looks like. And you can see in this photo here, Tracy has visited this teacher during math twice in a row. And maybe one, no, it looks like that was a whiteout, I'm not sure there. Maybe once during ELA. But clearly, if she continues this pattern, she's only ever going to see math. And the note card itself makes it obvious what to do. Okay, I need to visit during science or social studies, I need to visit during ELA, and the time of day for those subjects is written right on the card. So if on her calendar, Tracy has written out walkthroughs 1:15 p.m., she knows that that is not going to be adequate for visiting this teacher during another period. Simply putting that information at your fingertips every day in the form of these note cards is probably all it will take. It doesn't require a ton of intentionality, just a little bit. So if you've never set up these note cards, if you've just been trying to get into classrooms as you can, as your schedule allows, I'm going to suggest to you that that is probably not enough. As you can, as your schedule allows, as possible is probably not the best you can do, and a little tool like these note cards can make a big difference. So have your office staff write out those schedules, and then you start using those to keep track of your visits. Every day you want to think through these questions. As you get those top 3 note cards from the stack, your secretary hands them to you and says, hey, here are your walkthroughs for today. You look at those note cards and you want to ask yourself, okay, when have I not visited this teacher yet? When am I going to visit today? And then when am I going to come back and have that follow-up conversation? Based on those two considerations, what order do I want to visit teachers in today? Is there a certain window of opportunity where, if at 10 o'clock I go and observe teacher number 2, is that going to make me miss my debrief chat time with teacher number 1, if that's the only time in the day they're free? It only takes a minute to glance at these note cards in the morning, make those decisions, and get on with it. So decide in the morning, figure out a plan, figure out when you're going to go visit those teachers to observe and to chat briefly, and then make it happen. It will not always happen. Let's just be honest. Sometimes it does not work out despite our best plans. So if you do not make it to that teacher today, just put their note card back on top of the stack and try again tomorrow. Whatever teachers you do get around to, put their note cards on the bottom of the stack, and that will keep up your rotation. So a couple of factors you might want to think about as you strive to vary the time of your classroom visits. You want to think about which period you're observing during. If you're on a secondary schedule and you have different sections where the same subject is taught over and over to different groups of students, you want to think about varying the time within the period. If you're always seeing the middle of the lesson and never the beginning or the end, you're going to learn very different things by including the beginning or end of the period. Of course, different subjects, and I especially want to point your attention to teachers' non-favorite subjects. Anytime a teacher's teaching outside of their certification area, or it's just, their oddball class, maybe they have 4 sections of biology and 1 section of physics, you might want to make sure that you're getting to see that section of physics. If you have different sections, different groups, different cohorts, different academies that move throughout the day together, you want to make sure you're seeing those different groups of students. And of course, you want to make sure that you're seeing different times of day energetically in terms of, before lunch, after lunch, what's the pacing like? Just lots of variation that contains important information for you to have in mind. Even if you don't use it in the evaluation, you will use it as a leader and as a decision maker. So download those note cards, make them up if you have not already done that. Start keeping track, start planning your visit times if you're not already doing that. Plan them on paper, on purpose. I've got my planner printed out for the month of February. We've got the March planner ready for you as well, so print that out and use it every day. Look at your electronic calendar, figure out where your fixed appointments are, and then start to plug in those classroom visits. You've got the 3 note cards in your hand. You can plan those specific times to visit and then follow up with each of those teachers in your planner. And don't be afraid of the beginning or the end of the class period, right? Sometimes we feel like that's wasted time where we're not really going to see anything good in those first or last few minutes of class. But I would suggest to you that how teachers are using the first and last minutes of class is actually a very important topic for you to be up to speed on, and a very important opportunity for you to help people improve in those first and last few minutes of class. So a great strategy is to go see the last 10 minutes of one class, supervise in the hall. If you watch passing period and kind of keep order in the halls, go do that, and then pop right into another classroom for the first 10 minutes of class. So that end of class, transition period, beginning of class can be incredibly useful and incredibly rich. If you need a bit of a reminder to get into classrooms, we have these wonderful 500 Classrooms stickers. I've got one on my phone, I've got one on my water bottle, and you can see this person has one on, I think this is his computer here has the sticker on it. You can stick these anywhere. They come off easily if you change your mind, but they're very durable, nice stickers, and we've had like 1,000 of them printed up. So if you and that was not our first time to order them. So if you'd like one, let us know. We will send you one in the mail. Go to principalcenter.com/sticker, and if you want the note cards, principalcenter.com/note cards. Whatever you do, make it a habit. Get into classrooms, get started, work through the learning curve. You can do it. And if you want to read more, I've got a whole book about this. If you're a member of the Instructional Leadership Association, we should have sent you one. Let me know if you don't have a copy. If you're not a member, you should be a member, or you can get the book on Amazon. Now we're talking 21 Days to High Performance Instructional Leadership, especially Chapter 6, Making Time to Visit Classrooms, has a bit on this. And if you are an audiobook listener, if you're a member, we have that for you in the dashboard at no charge. We negotiated with the publisher to be able to give you access to the audiobook since we are already giving you the physical copy. And if you want that on Audible, you can find it on Audible as well. And if you would like to get your entire team on board, if you have a secondary team of principals and assistant principals, if you're in a large elementary school and you have a team, or even if you're in a very small school and you have a team that you want to build capacity for instructional leadership among, I want to encourage you to check out our Navigator school membership, which includes everything that we offer for everyone in your school on an affordable per student basis. And we also offer that at the district level, and we include membership in the Instructional Leadership Directors Roundtable for you and your senior leadership team. And you can learn more about that at principalcenter.com/roundtable. Whatever you do, Get out there, get into classrooms, and rotate those visits so that you can see what's going on in your school. You can know, you can make decisions based on that firsthand knowledge. So that's it for today. This has been episode 46 of the Instructional Leadership Show, rotating your visits to see a wider range of practice. I'm Justin Bader with the Principal Center, and I will see you next time. Take care.